Well, hello, g'day everyone. This is Life in the Peloton. I'm your host, Mitch Docker, and it's a new year, and that means, yes, new pods. Exciting stuff is happening. First, I want to announce our new partnership here at Life in the Peloton with MAAP. This is bloody exciting. I'm thrilled we could come together to keep telling these cycling stories. MAAP is an exciting brand right out of my hometown of Melbourne. The cycling, the style capital of the world, the coolest city in the world. That's what makes this partnership very, very cool. We're going to be working together to keep bringing you stories, adventures, and all the stuff you love here at Life in the Peloton. Well, if you're new to the podcast, a big welcome, or if you just want to know what we're doing this year at Life in the Peloton, we have a huge season of pods coming. We'll be chatting to the riders all over the world in our original Life in the Peloton series, exploring all the Pelotons out there, from World Tour to the gravel to mountain bike or just your local bunchy. As you know from the last couple of years, since I retired as a pro, there has been so much to explore out there and sometimes coming on the road with me. So we're going to continue exploring these stories. Talking Luft is back, a really fun, short, sharp DVDs, extras, feel style of podcast, where I'll be chatting to guests about style, culture, food, coffee, booze, bikes, whatever. Just having a bit of fun, finding a little bit more out about our guests in a really light-hearted way. And then, of course, we've got our brand new series launched last year, The Race Communique. This is a once-a-month wrap-up of what's going on in my old world, World Tour racing. Chatting with special guest host, EF Sports Director Tom Southam and Jayco Alula rider Luke Durbridge. In this series, we're going to unpack some racing news, some Pelo talk, and chat about the trends and rumours and try and understand and keep up to date what's going on in that crazy world of World Tour cycling. But first off the bat, this year with Life in the Peloton, we've got an adventure story. Yep, I did it again. I'm over here at Tour Down Under for the start of the World Tour cycling calendar. And of course, what a better way to get here than by bike. You may have heard my journey across last year from Ballarat, the Rat, to Adelaide, the Rat to Radelaide I did with 5 others. But this time, it's a little different. I still had the same theme. I always want to explore new areas, go to places I've never been before, and ride new roads. I didn't have quite as much time this year, or maybe it was just because I wanted to test my limits a little bit more. Whatever it was, I decided to trek across in 3 days. 3 very long days. But I didn't go on my own. I'm not that crazy. I've recently connected with an old mate since coming back to Melbourne, a guy called Pat Drapac. Pat and I started racing out together as youngsters, same club, same scene. He's a little bit younger than me, so we never really had to go head to head. But as you can hear from his name, Drapac, his father, Michael Drapac, started a team which we both raced on before I made the jump to Europe. There's a lot more to Pat than just racing bikes. His love for riding is undeniable, but his story with the bike has a lot of twists and turns, and it's quite inspiring when it comes back to just a simple passion of riding a bike. Day one, we headed out from the MAAP lab right in centre of Melbourne, and we trekked across 260k to a place called St Arnoux. The second day, we went for 300k across the flatlands to a place called Keith, and the last day we rolled 310k into Adelaide, hitting the Adelaide hills to finish us right off. The route was a tough one. My goal this year was to make a beeline from Melbourne to Adelaide. So I drew a straight line across, and I accepted that we'd take on whatever terrain it threw at us. It was a mixed bag to say the least, with the only real goal being to avoid main roads and make sure the stops had a decent pub. What I wanted from this trip was this solitude time, out for hours on end pedaling. It was a physical challenge, sure, but it was the time away from my normal day-to-day life schedule, a little chance to reset as this new year begins. Have someone out there with me I could ask those questions to, listen to what they had to say, and then have a little think. That's what this trip was about. Well, for me anyway, and Pat was that guy. On the road, we packed it, AG1, and that was a great way to start each morning. Taking care of your health isn't always easy, but it should be at least simple. That's why, for the last 3 years, I've been drinking AG1 every day, no exceptions. It's just 1 scoop mixed with water once a day, every day, and it makes me feel really good. That's because each serving of AG1 delivers a daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and lots more. It's a powerful, healthy daily habit, and it's also very simple. We were leaving early in the morning at 5:30. Nothing was open. So what we were doing is having AG1, a coffee, and then hitting the road and clocking about 50 to 60 kilometers before stopping and having something to eat. It wasn't really about trying to fast or anything. It was about convenience of the trip, really. But what I noticed was, not only from this trip, but since I've been using AG1, is it gives me a much more balanced energy level when starting the day like this. I don't really feel like I need to have anything to eat for the first few hours of my day after having AG1. And then it's the roll-on effect. I'm not searching for little tidbits of food throughout my day between my meals. It's allowing my body to start the day slowly without cramming food first thing in the morning. And the best thing, it's absorbing all those nutrients that AG1 gives me. I got Pat on board too. He was having trouble with his bowel movements because he's a chef these days. And working all night, he gets up later in the day. Like I said, we're on the road about 5:30 in the morning. His body didn't know what was going on. And after day one, he desperately needed to get regular bowel movements going again. And I said, mate, give this AG1 a try tomorrow. And it really helped him get things back on track. If there's one product I recommend to elevate your health, it's AG1. And that's why I've partnered with them for so long. If you want to take ownership in your health, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/lifeinthepeloton. That's drinkag1.com/lifeinthepeloton and check that out, guys. Just before we get to this episode, we put something together over the break and it's called The Pelo, the Life in the Peloton Club. Our very own membership. I've been wanting to do something like this for years now, for a few reasons. I really wanted to be able to give something extra to you guys for listening. Now, I've gone away and I've created a brand new series with my old friend Swain Tuft. Swain is one of the best people you can listen to. I absolutely love chatting with him. We were very close when we both lived in Europe, but since retiring and parting ways, we don't chat as much as I'd like to. I was thinking we need to do something together again. In Europe, we're always chatting in depth about different topics, adventuring, nutrition, what's going on in that crazy world of cycling. And so that's what we're doing. We're bringing the Pelo members a brand new series, The Life in the Peloton Chronicles with Swain Tuft. Him and I are going to be chatting to lots of different people, lots of different guests, learning what's going on, and then discussing in a long format what we feel about each topic. Our first episode will be coming to you next Friday, the 26th of January, about making it to World Tour. It's a topic both Swain and I were wondering about. How do these kids make it to the big leagues now? We couldn't even quite understand how we ever made it, how we made that step back in the day. But that's years ago. Things have changed so much now recently. So what does it take now? And what are these teams looking for? We dive deep into this topic, speaking to riders, teams, scouts, what it takes, and then discussing what we feel about this fast-changing sport of cycling. There's 2 tiers in the Pelo membership, the Echelon and the Doomline. Go across the Life in the Peloton and check out the Pelo. There's lots more to read about. There's an exclusive Pelo kit made by our partners MAAP and exclusive partner brand discounts to tap into as well. Plus, there's a load of other stuff. Get in quick for your very own Pelo membership number. I'd love to have you guys on board our very new club. Now, guys, that's a lot. I've held you up long enough. Great to be back up and rolling. A massive 2024. We'll get you on the road for our journey with Pat across to Adelaide, the MAAP to RAAD, Melbourne to Adelaide. Sit back and enjoy. We're here down at the MAAP lab. We're here with Pat Drapac, mate. How are you feeling?
Ready, nervous, excited, a lot of things, but yeah, just trying to feel out the sensations at the moment. But yeah, I sort of had such a funny little sleep, you know, in anticipation. But yeah, really excited.
Why? What's so funny about it?
When I say funny, probably just like, yeah, nervous. You know, that sort of like, you got to wake up early. You got a big thing on the horizon. I just was like, you know, probably a bit nervous, to be completely honest with you. So, but mostly excited.
Oh, here's his coffee.
Yeah.
we're starting, like I said, we're starting in the middle of Melbourne at the MAAP Lab to celebrate our new partnership and I guess adventures sort of starting here across to Adelaide. What would you be nervous about? Why would you possibly be nervous about this?
That's a good question. I just now that you said that, you've eased those nerves.
Yeah.
So, and I have the coffee in the hand, so now I'm good. I think
Quattro Ristretto?
Yeah, quad shot as we call it, 4-shot espresso. The other thing is what a cool opportunity to go see some new places and to go for a big bike ride. That's like really sick. Not many people get that chance. So
he says now. Well, once we get out on the road, we're going to have a chat. We're going to find out a little bit more who Pat is. Get some Ks in our legs and I guess listen to the struggles along the way. We've got a crew with us. We've got about 8 people to roll out with us. Just enough.
Few good sits there, I reckon. So we'll have to figure out how we're going to roll those turns. But may as well get a bit of a leap ahead. But yeah, we got a bit of a turnout. I guess unsurprising. Yeah, there are some keen beans from all over Melbourne here actually. So and your old man.
You can hear him in the background.
Yeah.
6:35. I said we'll roll at 6:30, so let's get going.
Cool. All right, looking forward to it.
We're here in very close proximity to Land Vegas. We're in Newham, up in the Macedon Ranges, and it's been a tough start, actually. We're 4 hours in, 88 Ks, so haven't been flying along. Been headwind and pretty tough riding. Pat, it's good to be away, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, look, the stats aren't pretty, but the riding has been really lovely. Your neck of the woods here. We went through the Capital City Trail and just some lovely... Look, we were on pretty technical little circuits, bike path, etc. But yeah, really nice day. Mid-20s? Where we are right now kind of gives me some flashbacks from old Northern Combine road races that we used to do. We were on the corner just before the sprint, and I just remember completely butchering the sprint last time I raced here. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, lovely day.
What about the crew that we're with? We're down to 2. We did have 3. We had Damien. He might pop still around, but once we got to the hills, we sort of lost our crew, didn't we?
Yeah, we had maybe close to 10 of us leave MAAP this morning, and then one Lone Ranger, Damo, who is somewhere out on the road. we hope he makes it here because he was planning to ride with us to Castlemaine. But yeah, it was nice. It was like a bit of a community and crew to sort of start the journey. But yeah, Damo, who we thought had a puncher up the last climb, he was actually just having a rest on the side of the road.
What are you thinking? Because look, I'm thinking. I'm sort of rethinking things a bit at the moment. I'm like, this is already looking tough. This is 90k in, back's a bit sore, legs are a bit, I don't know. What are your thoughts now?
Look, I'm trying to block them out, but I think if you really want to put some thought to it, yeah, it's going to be a long ass day. On this trajectory, maybe 14 hours of riding, and we have to factor in some, some recovery and some stops. So I'm trying to be optimistic at the moment, stay positive. The morale's pretty high, but yeah, maybe the next checkpoint I might change my tune. But yeah, for now, all systems go. Let's do it.
Well, I've got also Liddy here's come to save the day. My wife and my 2 kids are here. Liddy, first time on the pod. Gave you a phone call last night, didn't you? Didn't I? Wasn't to say how you going or anything. What was it for?
All the things that you'd forgotten, like the podcast gear, shorts, a Kubra, all the essentials.
So you've come to rescue us, but this is it. This is really goodbye now, isn't it?
This is it, yeah. This is it for a few days, so good luck on the journey. We'll miss you.
I'll miss you guys too. Thanks for coming out. All right, let's get going. All right, we have just finished lunch at Grist Artesian Bakery here in Chewton, just outside of Castlemaine. Actually, don't blow my own whistle here. It's been a pretty nice route so far. Paddy?
You've done a great job. I feel like we haven't had to deal with much traffic, and Like, things have been, I don't know, we've been ticking along.
We sound good now, but I tell you, I needed a minute. Wheels started to fall off for me about 10k ago. I think I've gone too deep and I've come in too fresh. We did speak about this, the freshness.
Yeah.
I need today to train, and we've still got, let me have a look here, 118 to go. Thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think we were both hoping that the freshness would...
you'll find that.
Man, if you could see my nicks right now, I have... I could salt your steak. It's like deceptively hot though, hey. And look, I'm telling myself I'm okay, but like I'm looking at the salt on my back and my nicks, and I'm like, it's pretty full on. So, but yeah, you're trying to tell me that we've got it all downhill until we get to St. Arnold.
On the map, it looks nicely downhill. This doesn't look uphill, but there's a few sharp kickers. We've got a headwind. Weather gods are being kind, but they're still letting us know they're about.
I guess it's just those exposed sectors that really feel it. You really feel it. But we lost Damo. That's another plot twist.
It's you and I, mate, all the way in.
Just you and I. I'm really looking forward to having a nice shower at the other end.
Let's do it. We got Dooley in about 60 clicks, 60, 70 clicks. We'll get a drink there and then we'll smash it on in. Ouch, that hurt. We're at Denali, about 60 to go. I guess that makes it 200k mark. Mate, we sort of had a nice trail there out of Castlemaine to Malden, but then Malden to here just got a bit grippy, didn't it?
I think it just started to that last sort of 15k. It was a false flat, cross head, just the kind of thing that you don't want, edging towards the 200. But we were sort of chatting away until that point, and then decided to roll a few turns.
Few death turns.
A few death turns. 5 minutes, approx.
Tell you what, the old gravel bikes, you notice them on the road, so yeah.
Oh yeah, there's coming off the SL7, which is just a rocket ship. Yeah, I'll never take that for granted.
The thing is, we needed the gravel bikes.
There was a lot of gravel today, and I almost made the poor decision of putting slick tyres on to get every advantage, but I'm so glad I didn't. I think likewise you. I'm head to toe in dirt, mud, salt, sweat, tears. I think it's mentally, we're at home stretch, right? I don't know.
60 to go.
Yeah.
All right, Pat, we made it, mate. It's all the way to St. Arnoud. St. Arnoud? Actually, St. Arnoud. Maybe I'm not saying that right. How do you say it?
I think St. Arnoud sounds pretty good, actually.
Well, it's 266k away from the MAAP lab. It took us 10 hours, just over 10 hours 10. We chipped along pretty well. 26k an hour average. Took us 13 hours total, so we had a few stops, a few little hiccups, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean...
hiccups.
I thought we did pretty well with the stops. I thought we limited the stoppage time to 15-20 minutes, but we obviously didn't. Somewhere. We made it, and yeah, it's we're just walking down the street to get some dinner pretty gingerly, I guess.
It does feel good to walk, and I'm loving the fact that we're about to have a draft beer, something I look forward to every day after these adventures. We've got a bit of a hoot hoot.
Hoot hoot.
Yeah, so must know the big boys are in town from the big bike packing trip.
Look, man, I think they were pretty young.
Fans of the sport. Mate, give me a quick highlight and low light from the day. My low light was probably, I asked you a question, if there was 4K of the route we could have taken out, what would the 4K be? If someone just said to you, hey, instantly now you can be 4K in front of where you are. It was that bit when we were on the highway, slight gradual uphill, headwind, and we were chopping off. I was like, could have done without that. That's my low light.
I agree. That was probably the moment I realised that could be the reality for the next 700k. I was like, okay, This is the ride. This is the ride. This is what's happening.
But it was nice to understand who was boss out there. You know, we had to have a bit of a, make sure we knew who was in control, and clearly you were. I was squirmishing behind you. You didn't know that, but I was hanging on from grim death.
I was also pretty boxed in front, and I thought like, oh, he's probably judging me for, pulling a real soft turn here. But it was like a real difficult stretch, at that point of the ride. I think we still had 70k to go. So it's not like you're getting there, but you're not there. Like there's a couple, 2.5 hours. A mutual low light then.
What about your highlight? I personally loved rolling in here. It was a really cool feeling, that elation of like it's done. And the night sort of opened up. It's a really beautiful night. And it's a really lovely town. About 10 pubs in here. It's ridiculous.
Per capita, this would have to be most pubs in the world, I think.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I need to move up here and just sort of do my own pub crawls here weekly.
But I think 90% of them are closed. But yeah, I think that you sort of, call it euphoric feeling when you're there and you're like, oh, thank the Lord.
So what's yours? You can't follow me again.
That was a good one. A highlight. Look, I think there was some stretches of road out near your place that, some of those climbs, despite they were, being hard, the landscape and the roads it was pretty epic. It was really beautiful. So, and I was still pretty fresh then, so I think I was fresh. I was pretty energized, and yeah, I was in a good headspace.
God's country there, mate. Land Vegas. I'll look for a property for you, mate. They're going quick.
I'm pretty sure you work for the tourism office there because, yeah, you're always spooking. But it was beautiful. It was really, it was nice, man.
Day 1, 2 more to come, 300 tomorrow. Let's not talk about it just yet. Let's go inside, get some dinner, and get a cold beer.
It feels good to be horizontal.
It does feel good to be horizontal, Pat. Mate, we're back in the room. It was a big day. I thought about talking to you out on the road, but I like this setting a lot better because we can just sort of relax. And I guess for all listeners out there, but also for me, to sort of go back to the beginning, I guess, and find out a little bit more about who Pat Drapac is, who Rick Drapac is, Ricardo.
Scary question.
Mate, we got to go right back. When we sort of first crossed paths, but you were riding bikes before that. Let's just understand how you got into cycling, full stop, back in the day. The old question that we've answered a million times.
I started the Brunswick Velodrome, obviously, way back in, I think, 1995.
Was it?
Yeah.
How old were you then?
I was 4. Yeah, I guess as a family went down to the Brunswick Clinic, as you did, and you sort of tried to find the best bike you could in the locker, and lots of fond memories. It took me about 3 years to actually learn how to overtake people around the track. I was a chronic undertaker.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But
massive no-no on the velodrome.
I know.
Your dad wanted to get you down there, or was it just, your older brother, Damian, and, Jules, your younger brother? So you all went down as a family, or Damian was already down there, or how did it all happen? Why cycling?
I mean, I was so young that I don't exactly remember, but Dad was a sort of, hobbyist cyclist, and I think was one of those people that watched the Tour de France and saw Phil Anderson, really sort of take on the world stage. And it's not like I didn't really have a choice. Yeah, I liked other sports too, but yeah, I'm really glad that he did. Not to say that I fell in love with it more than my other siblings. I did fall for the sport. I think we all did in our own way, but a lot of my memories as a kid are riding bikes, racing bikes. If you asked me as a young kid, it was the Tour de France and the Olympics. That was kind of the, those are the absolute pinnacles. And obviously neither of those happened. But, mainly track and road, but road BMXs, mountain bikes sort of dipped the toe.
Just to fast forward a few years, but especially when I sort of started noticing your family out at the Northern Combine, which was the road racing, and you guys used to come out, and especially yourself and your younger brother Jules, you guys were super small on these road bikes and doing the races, and just a real sort of family just getting out there doing the racing. It was really cool to see. your dad as well, very influential at those times, and later on we can talk about that later, but especially at the club scene, that love for the riding. What was it like for you going out to those races, and then I guess coming back to something that we discussed today out on the road, presenting that you're doing this sort of weird sport in Australia, and it's come a long way to today, but back then, back in the day, it was weird.
It was weird. I think it was incredibly niche, and trying to tell your mates at school that you race bikes.
Did you care?
It wasn't like I was self-conscious or anything, but it didn't seem something to really sort of like celebrate. It's definitely evolved and changed, but at that time I probably didn't care. I was sort of so passionate about racing and riding, and on the note of rocking up to sort of the Northern Combine and local crits, and sort of being on these little peewee bikes, like I haven't really paid it much thought, but I was racing older riders and was probably way out of my depth, but I think it really fast tracked a lot of my learning, and that to me was normal, riding with and racing with people like yourself, and obviously being in a different league, but yeah, it was just normal. I don't know. It's like Dad threw us in the deep end or something.
What about your dad? Was there pressure from your dad? What sort of angle was your dad taking at that point? My mum and dad, my dad rode casually, but I played cricket and rugby. And so cycling was a new sport that they didn't really have a connection to. And I sort of loved it because, no one had done it before and it was sort of my own. But what about for you guys?
I think we were all figuring it out on the run.
There's no real pressure. It was just sort of like,
let's sort of, for instance, go to Bright. And I think for those I guess most people in Australia would be familiar with Bright as a cycling mecca. But yeah, I remember my little brother Jules climbing Mount Buffalo when he was 8, and that was
you're sort of all learning it together.
Yeah, totally. And we were like, that's normal. That's not that far fetched. But I think about that now, and I'm like, that was crazy. Yeah, lots of fun memories.
Well, let's fast forward then to the beginning of Drapac, your surname Drapac, but the Drapac team, very pinnacle in Australian cycling, and it became, pretty pinnacle at the top tier, when Drapac became the sponsor of my old team, EF, which at that time was called Cannondale Drapac. Your dad's goal to get a team into the Tour de France. And I remember hearing this, I think I was at the Wangaratta Victorian Championships, and you didn't know your dad that well, and came up to me and my parents and presented this idea. I'm going to start this team. I want Mitch involved and go to the Tour de France. I was like in under 19 or I was 17, 18 years old. And I'm like, what is this idea? I want to be involved. And then we've seen the evolution of that over the years. And tell me about, from what you know, how this sort of all came about, and this idea, and when you started hearing about it as a kid and this is what you wanted, was it something that your dad always wanted, or how did this whole thing come about?
I think partially it was to support us, of course, but it was, pretty ambitious, talking to a young Mitch Docker, saying that, one day you're going to ride the Tour de France for our team. And at that point, I think we were, no more than a bike shop team. It was ambitious, to say the least. The sort of ethos around Drapac was, try and develop people beyond, the racer. I don't know, at the time, perhaps it was probably a bit early in terms of ahead, I think it's fair to say it was ahead of its time. And in some respects, look, I think people will have their own versions and opinions of what the team was, but it was ahead of its time and cutting edge in many respects. And I think like you go in to a sport and you're kind of all in, and you're obviously trying to master that craft. Cycling is so time consuming, more so than a lot of sports, but I think at the neglect of, just developing yourself and having other interests and doing other things. And I think, look, I think it's maybe a little naive to think that everyone can go off and have a job or study, but I think like what we're seeing is that like riders and athletes post career, they're definitely struggling because they haven't developed certain life skills. Yeah,
I think so.
Totally.
Where'd you sit in the program then? You came in, program, the team, the Drapac team. Eventually, when you were old enough and strong enough, you came into the team, you raced. What was your experience in the team?
I was in the team, I think, in like, so 2009 or to 2011 maybe. So I was 18, 19-year-old. At that point, I was kind of struggling with motivation and my own identity, to be honest. Like, despite really praising what the team was doing, I was personally struggling. And I think that, maybe speaks to, we all develop and we all mature at different points, but I'd done a lot of racing and cycling for so many years. And I think I was just actually, developing other interests and transitioning out of the sport. Like, it was almost like by the time I was in the team, I was ready to move on. But yeah, look, I felt really connected to the team anyway, like, just by association. So, I did some overseas racing, and, back then I was very prevalent on the track, and I think my relationship with cycling at that point wasn't as healthy as it is, say, now.
Well, tell me then, like you said then, and it's fast forwarding a few more years now, you started your own business, Pat's Veg, fermenting. You can tell me a bit more about it, but fermenting foods, and it was great. It was so sad it's not around anymore, because there was some amazing krauts and things you were doing there.
Thank you.
But on the back of that, you decided to start your own team too. Tell me a little bit about that next step, because I'm probably missing a few years there, but from what I remember when Pat's Veg came about and that idea, and then where it led into the team, to start your own team with a bit of a similar ethos.
I started Pat's Veg 2012.
A year after sort of stepping away from Drapac.
Totally. I didn't wait around.
Tell us about the business.
I was young. I would have been 21, but I had, like, classic story. I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I had no idea. But I knew that there was this kind of like need for, products like this. Fast forward to now, obviously fermented foods have been around in various cultures forever, but I guess in our market closer to home, there wasn't much there. For a bunch of reasons, knew that there was going to be a sort of a boom in this market. I mean, more than that, like as a sort of health food product, there was just it's just an awesome food, like thin just to have on hand. You were an avid eater, but I think
what were the products, just so people know you had?
I kind of like basically I was fermenting mainly sort of sauerkrauts, kimchi's, vegetable.
What about
fermentation and pickles, and
what about the potion?
Oh yeah, the brine. Yeah, look,
the rocket fuel.
I think I copped some pretty strange looks trying to sell this stuff at farmers markets, and I
love the brine.
It was an interesting time because I was experimenting a lot, and then I had to try and convince people to buy it. But what
was it?
It was essentially just a byproduct of the krauts, But it was so flavorful and like has so many amazing properties. But I started the business and put all my energy into that, and that was really cool because it felt like some real world stuff. But I've loved cooking and love food forever, and I find like that's a big part of my identity. But yeah, the business was like, it was a great learning curve, and I made heaps of mistakes and a bit of a classic story, I guess, but managed to produce a really sick product in the end. The funniest thing about it was that I think 6 years in, once I'd nailed the product, I like shut it down. It was kind of my baby, and despite having some sort of offers on the table, I needed to kill it. So
why?
Like it ran its course, and 6 years
ran its course with you as well.
Yeah, totally. Like personally, it's hard work. Like food's hard.
Consumed you?
Yeah, completely. But I guess to somewhere in between all of that, I started Pat's Veg cycling. That underwent like its own sort of evolution from a bunch of friends to something slightly more serious, but ultimately had a really awesome culture. And I was really we were really proud of what we did with the team. At times with not a lot, and it was.
Why did you want to get back into it? Why did you think, I really want to do this again. I really want to get the team going. I really want to get back involved, and
just to feel, I guess, connected to the sport.
Did you miss it in those years?
Hell yeah. I mean, look, I've always kept in touch with riding and racing, and I mean, very sporadically, but I missed it. I didn't want to have a real serious outfit. I thought we could do it a little lo-fi, piggybacked off Drapac, and after all that, we became the development team for Drapac, and in the end, Drapac and Pat's Veg merged as well, which was sort of really fitting. But
sat down at the table with your dad at a business meeting to talk about the merger.
Pretty much the big merger. Look, it seemed really like it was easy. That was a natural,
nice,
really natural move.
I'm wondering now, I could be wrong, but is it just just talking to you over the last day and understanding, thinking, it's reminding me a lot of, when we're down the track and doing Madisons together, and just your real love for racing, and you love your criteriums, you love that being in the moment. We're talking about how things are drifting today to justifying your ride by the power you put out. It's just like, you don't ride with any power meter, no speedo, no nothing, and you get in the race and you just race. You race to win. And I'm sort of thinking then about the team. It's like, look, I want to get back into the racing. I don't want to just create a team to go cruising around and riding. It's like, let's create a racing team. I miss the racing.
Totally. I think you hit it on the head. Like, in that moment, I got to, my brother Duda was involved, and I guess it really bonded us in that moment, which was really cool. And like, as call us managers of the team, we were complimentary, He sort of hustled and got a bit more done, but I don't know what I did. I did something. It's funny. It's like, I love racing, and I think personally I love to pin a number on and sort of throw a leg over, but that wasn't a completely like a results based operation. Of course I want to win. We all want to win, but like, maybe going back, if the culture's right, we can get the best out of everyone and therefore get some results. It spanned over a few, like almost 4 or 5 years. So it definitely changed and evolved in its own way, but it was cool, like, to get out there with friends, go race a bike, just sort of like debrief and talk shit, and it's a cliche, but have fun. That was it. Everyone has their own personal ambitions on the bike, but I think as a unit, like at that time, the team was, I don't know, it just gelled, and it's maybe hard to sort of sometimes put into words why these things seemingly work, but from a personal standpoint, it was really lovely just to be back involved, and it just sort of changed my trajectory with bike racing.
$5:04 in the morning, mate.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, isn't it? We're just recalibrating. Out of 10, I would say I'm feeling about a 4.
What's our plan of attack?
We're gonna try and get out of here ASAP and beat the heat. We've got about 300k to do, but we've got a downhill start. But we just want to get a bit ahead today, so hence the early start. But just sort of chug along, slow and steady.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Well, Pat, we're well and truly on our way. We've done about 80k now. It is 8:30 in the morning. It's been a bit of a glorious start today, hasn't it?
We started with a bit of a downhill and, slight cross tail, and the weather, it's been relatively easy, we would say. An easy 80.
Where are we heading towards now? Like, what's our plan today?
So we're about 20k out of our first stop in Warrackers, where we'll fuel up. I think that's going to be one of our last spots to do so, because I think the next town's 150 past them. But yeah, so far so good.
And we've been just sort of chatting nutrition, actually, and I think the angle, not that we're going to get too in depth into it, but is, I guess, give everyone a bit of an idea on these kinds of adventures and long sort of days. What does the fueling really look like?
I mean, look, you eat what you have available to you, right? But we were sort of discussing how at times you want to eat real food, despite this sort of, smashing yourself with simple carbs and sugars. For me personally, like, I want like food that I'm familiar with, that's not going to like mess my gut up. You take what you can get. Like I was craving just like vegetables yesterday, which sounds pretty weird. Lots of salt, because I was completely buckled. But my take is that I want familiar food. I just want real food. Less packaged shit, the better.
What about now getting into sort of like your day-to-day thought, like when you're out on the road, you're like, okay, I need to get so many fluids in. Last night was really good. We really rehydrated. You had some potassium and magnesium tablets that we had to sort of get that important electrolytes back in. I guess from your knowledge and your time riding over the years, what do you sort of fall back to in your mind? You're like, okay, this is really important to get through these big days.
You can also kind of do makeshift versions of that, get some coconut water, which will have a bunch of potassium and some salt, and you've got a pretty good electrolyte mix there. I mean, judging by how much we sweated, like that was priority number one. Look, for me, it's kind of just eating some complex foods as well. Like we tucked into a nice steak and veggies, and that was like exactly what I needed. Maybe like a dietitian might say otherwise, but like it was just comfort. We had a scratch protein drink with the probiotics, so we're trying to look after the gut. I don't want to pop too many tablets. I guess you can kind of like source and derive a lot of this stuff from real foods and things on the market, but in this context, like gels and like very kind of refined bars are just kind of not worth it. Like you kind of, in my mind, I would use a gel in the context of a race, or if I was super desperate and there wasn't anything available. But I just kind of think it's just junk calories as well.
You talk about junk and things like that. People are probably wondering, what is junk? You're telling me gels are junk and the processed food's junk. But look, to make things easier on your body, and when you're out here putting that much stress on your body anyway, to give it something natural as you can, and as easily sort of digestible, and sort of, I guess, getting it back to the real food. Like, we're not in a race situation. We can afford to have that bit more time, digesting a good piece of a good natural whatever it is, opposed to jamming in a gel in the moment in a race. So that's what I sort of gathered out here, and that's what it is. We've got time to stop and eat a nice dinner and a nice lunch and things like that. So at the end of the day, it's, I think, coming back to what you really crave and listening to your body. Well, just rolled through Jepperit. It looks like it's probably the last town that we're going to reach. I'll go through until we get to our final destination today, Keith. We've got 160 to go. We've done 140. We just ran into a little bit of problems. Everything was smooth sailing. We're on nice gravel roads. Weather was good. Weather gods were being kind. Bit of a push behind from the wind. But then, looking at your bike now, it's ridiculous. It all can happen so quickly, Pat, can't it? What happened?
Well, we were on a little gravel stretch, which was completely dried out, but there was one little sector which was just complete deep sludge, and we both nearly ate it hard. You can't see our bikes, but they're completely clogged, and I'm still got that dirt that's like flicking off the tires into the face. So that's been going on the last 10k. I don't know. It's a bit of a heart starter.
Well, the thing is, you've come in road shoes, and it was one of those sort of mud piles where it looked like a bit of water on the right, dried out on the left. So we took the left side, but actually it was that fake dried out. It was super soft as quicksand. I stepped off. I was in the gravel shoes, so I could still clip in, but we stopped and sort of stole someone's front water tap and just cleaned ourselves up sort of 10k after. So we're back on the road. Been a nice day so far. Pat, just like yesterday, mate, about 4 o'clock, it starts to get really hard. The sun, I don't know, it just gets really hot, and I think obviously the fatigue builds up. We've got like 45k to go. I know we're close, but I can't feel it yet.
Inevitably hit these like open, exposed roads, and the temperature's at its highest, so up against it. But I think the biggest point is that we're cooked, 250k in, and we had a few interesting segments. We had sort of swamp, we had paddock, we rode along a field, like an agricultural field. That was it looked like cabbage leaves actually, and some quicksand. So yeah, lots of mud, and I sort of had I had some demon periods back there, and I didn't have to say anything because you already knew. But yeah, home stretch. Nonetheless, it's feels like a long way to go.
Well, randomly there's a car passing us. I haven't seen a car all day, and as soon as I pull the mic out, there's a car. And he's got South Australian plates on, so we must have crossed the border, and that means we've miraculously gained half an hour, so we're ahead of schedule. We're going to get in at maybe 6. We're going to have time for a frosty, shower, relax. It's exciting. Let's build the morale on the way in. Should be downhill on the way in too.
And that's all worth celebrating, I think. Small victories.
All right, Paddy, mate, we're out the back of this motel, enjoying a cold beer, free balling. Excuse everyone, because it has been very hard on the points of contact, hand and ass. My bottom is very sore and my hands are very sore. It's good to get in though. I feel really good, especially after a beer, just to take the edge off. But it was a tough day today, mate. Not a lot of climbing. Very hot that time after 2 o'clock. It just kicks in. I was feeling really good till then, and then especially that last hour, really the fatigue and the heat, and as you said as we rolled in, always feels good completing a ride. Doesn't matter how long it is, how big, whatever. It's just that last sort of K when you know you've done it. Tell me about your day, mate.
Pretty good synopsis, Mitch. I think we had a bit of everything today. I mean, I was proud that we took off on time. That's a difficult thing for me to hit the depart time. We were pretty much on the dot, 5:30. It's kind of like a weird, eerie, beautiful time to ride a bike through a country town and then country roads. It's so still. It was very still today. So it started well. And we had that little, cross tail just to push us along, which, I'm not going to deny that was necessary. I think early in the morning when you're kind of figuring out where your body's at and your head, you're you just need a little bit of a helping hand. The day on a whole was hard. There's not many 300k days that you do that aren't hard. But for me personally, first half was kind of relatively easy, mentally and physically. Once we went into that, we started to hit the slush and the proper gravel and the paddock, I was just I went very inward. I was definitely dealing with my demons at that point. And then it starts to get hot and you're you're getting more tired. And all of a sudden you're walking your bike and you're this sucks. I just want to ride this thing. And I think what I realized was that I'm not very good riding through sand either. I was I'm so bad at this. I had a few little realizations, but yeah, you made a really good call, suggesting we pull 5k turns as well on those really dead kind of open roads, and that I think that mentally brought me back. But look, on a whole, yeah, super hard day, but very satisfied right now.
It was very rewarding. And look, I'll just quickly run through the stats. It was 302k today. It was no climbing at all, 400 metres of climbing. And we're 10 hours. We're only 6 minutes behind yesterday. We really cranked along at 29k an hour. It's so weird because at times we were walking and we were doing 10k an hour through this, just like you said, a paddock, overgrown paddock. And I was watch out for snakes. There's going to be snakes. And there was snakes in there, I'm sure of it. It was a real mixed bag day today. Fast sections, super slow sections, bogged, getting our fingers in between the tyre to clean them out. like peanut butter mud, and then just sand, corrugated roads. Like it was everything. I guess we hit you with it. Highs and lows, mate.
I think the low was when my foot went like beneath the mud, and I had my road shoes on, so I was like, you know, full noob at the moment, and like couldn't put my pedals back in. But that whole period with the walking and being frustrated, then yeah, having my feet just almost like shin deep in the mud, I was like, what the hell am I doing here? Kind of had those thoughts. I was like, I could not be doing this. Low point for me. High, I think it was maybe that like post lunch, we were 200k in, and we sat on the side of the road. It was real hot. We had 100k left, and rather than kind of just slowly easing into it, I think you kind of made the call and to do the turns, and that mentally just like put me in a different headspace. I felt really good. I was like, I wanted to race, so I think you kind of brought me out of the hole.
Oh, I noticed that. I certainly noticed it. I regretted it because I wasn't getting any rest. I was doing a hard turn and I was sitting in your wheel not getting any rest. It was hell. It's potentially my low point. Yeah, actually, it really was my low point. I did love doing the turns because it really chipped away at 5k turns. Next thing you know, we had 30k done, 3 turns each. It was so simple. But I went from being in a really good spot through all the gravel and the mud and everything to suddenly being like, oh, this is just hurting. I'm not enjoying this. In the back of my mind, I was like, just keep quiet because the Ks are ticking away, and the heat was coming. And I think we discussed this too. It's sort of weird. It doesn't matter how far it is. If it was 260, if it was 100, if it was 400, all of a sudden when you think you're almost there, when it's like 20, 40k to go, you start to let the guard down. You start to go, oh, I'm almost there. Oh, I want to be there. And you start to hurt all of a sudden. My high point was rolling out. I enjoyed rolling out this morning. It was really cool. It was just like, it wasn't freezing, but it was crisp in the air, and it was a downhill start, and I just felt like we got away on the right foot. The speed was up, the sun was coming up. It was just like, wow, this is awesome. I felt like crap in the motel, but already like 10 minutes into it, I was like, yeah, this is actually exactly where I want to be. All right, let's go get some dinner. Let's go get a cold beer. So, Paddy, this seemed like a good idea last night. All of a sudden, recording a podcast at 9:30 at night is all very hard at the moment, isn't it, after 2 days in the saddle?
I was really hoping that you wouldn't want to do this. But he's a professional.
Let's pick up where we were chatting about last night. We talked about sort of Pat's Veg, sort of the end of Pat's Veg. And I guess that next phase, for me anyway, there was definitely a period of sort of loss. I didn't really know where you were, what you were doing. When you were always connected to cycling, I sort of I was in touch with you a bit, and I sort of heard around what you were doing and popped in at Pat's Veg. But then there was this period of, you sort of, I wouldn't say, in my eyes anyway, disappeared a bit. Tell me a little bit about what you're up to post Pat's Veg.
When I parted with it, I was, at the time, the natural thing to do was just run away from everything. And I ended up moving to Copenhagen, where I started to cook. Reignited that hobby job. I guess at the time I just wanted to get the hell out of Melbourne, almost just detach from what life was for so many years. And yeah, it was a big breakup of sorts.
Had you chefed before, or why Copenhagen as well?
I had worked in hospitality. I did a little bit of cooking as a teenager. Started at a restaurant in, God, I must have been 17 or 18. And to be completely honest, I was like, I had a quick realization that cooking and chefing was kind of hard. Like,
what was the restaurant?
At La Luna.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
One of your dad's favorite places?
It was one of Dad's favorite places. And cooking is a romantic thing, or being a chef, I think. But the reality is it sort of sucks. I basically, I love it. Sorry, I'm going to retract. But from Denmark, I kind of basically, went full steam into cooking and worked at, a bunch of different restaurants back in Melbourne and eventually up in the Northern Rivers, and kind of just really fell into it. The fermenting was a bit of a segue. It was always going to be cooking.
Why Copenhagen though? Why Denmark?
Oh, at that time, I think just,
Did you have any connections there or what?
Not
Why?
at all. It was a food mecca. It's a relatively small city, but like packed a punch in terms of just like cutting edge food, or at least, you know, at the time, that's what I kind of felt. Sort of simultaneously in that part of the world, there was a lot happening in fermentation, and I guess fermentation started to really filter into gastronomy, and my skill sets all of a sudden were, I guess, in demand. I can tell you what happened. I visited Copenhagen a few years earlier with a name you would be familiar with, Tom Palmer, an old blast from the past.
Rode on Drapac, yeah, great rider, yeah.
Great rider, person. And we were cruising around, driving around Northern Europe, and then, I was like, man, I think I'm going to move here one day.
I love that thought when you're traveling around Europe. You're like, I could live in this place, you know?
That's a classic, isn't it? The cliche. You're like, I could live here. You're like, you're on holiday in summer, and it's beautiful. And
was it everything you thought? More or less?
No, hell no. It was just like, all right, shit, the language isn't really a barrier because everyone speaks English. And also in food, like, I guess the ads for restaurants and cafes required English speaking. So I didn't need to speak Danish. Probably should have tried to learn it. But it was hard, you know, like just the funny little things. Like, I guess there are these, for instance, like, trying to find a rental, the easiest way to do it, and probably the only way to do it, is through Facebook. I didn't even have Facebook, and I was like, shit, all right. So I sort of had to like figure it out on my own. I literally had no links there. Yeah, you know, got a job within a couple of weeks, you know, a place to live, etc. Didn't have any money, but it was just like, you know, I guess that's when you need to kind of make it work. You're like, all right, I actually got to do this. And it was just a good little life experience.
What brought you back?
Unfortunately, my brother passing. So that happened. I went back. My visa was running out, and then, you know, COVID. I guess like a few different reasons.
You mentioned Damien's passing, your brother. Tragically was killed out riding. It's something that you guys grew up. We spoke about that last night. How did that affect you and that time in Denmark? You know, a lot of riding over there, and you stepped away from having your own team, and then you came back for this. Your brother's passing away on a bike. You know, it's something you guys love to do. How's that affected your riding, you know, in those years?
I really struggled to reason with it, and then I really struggled to want to ride a bike. I was so put off everything about cycling. I remember, you know, I guess at the time I just thought, it wasn't fair. I guess there's a lot of unfair things that happen to people, but for me it was this shared interest and kind of passion that we had, and which he had also, I guess, to sort of rewind a bit, he really inspired me to, or just encouraged me, he just encouraged me a lot to keep riding. Like, he was one of the sort of the major like driving forces behind me just riding and racing, and just he sort of like would always try and include me. And
was it healthy
me.
competition and sort of like, you know, little brother thing, like you're not going to keep up, or was always encouraging, you know?
Oh, it was so much he was so
he was
so far. I remember being in we were in like a Northern Combine Club series, and we attacked pissing down, and we attacked like from the gun and stayed away, and we were like a minute up the road, and it was so dangerous and technical. In the final lap, he just fully whacked me as hard as.
You're like, what are you doing?
We're together. I was like, what are you doing? I'll let you win. You know, and that was just to have the sort of to have one up. I think it'd be strange if there wasn't some kind of rivalry. Yeah, look, but that aside, it was more like, you know, upon reflection, I kind of remember many instances where he sort of was like, you should, just come race or come do this, and it was one of the big reasons why I'm probably still riding. You know, yeah, grateful for that.
Tell me about this trip, and I don't know if it's got much correlation to what we were just talking about, but this trip up to Byron Bay, and I love this story because it's sort of set up this new phase of your life. And again, this just idea of just like, I'm just going to jump on a bike and just ride somewhere, and then tell me the story, and ending up there, and just, I love this, heading up to Byron Bay.
I guess at the time it was sort of, I can't remember the exact COVID lockdown, but you know, we were sort of in between one of those. I was working in a restaurant and just, you know, not necessarily hating life, but it was
just in a rut.
I was in a rut and getting a bit worn down. And what better way to sort of get out of a rut than, and you know, go for a bike ride, I guess. So a friend and I, Louis, we spontaneously quit our jobs and decided to go for a bike ride. I guess a little bit of an extra bit to the ride, or the reason for the ride was I was connected to one of the sort of local teams at the time, and Team Cycle House, and they were going to do the Tour of Brisbane, like an NRS race, and there was just available spots. And, you know, mind you, I hadn't touched a bike in a while, which sort of I guess it was June-ish, and basically I said, stuff it, I'll basically ride up there.
Melbourne to Brisbane.
So
About 2,000k.
It's about 2,000k.
Just do your whole pre-season in a couple of weeks.
Exactly. So I'll do my training along the way.
Nice.
And it was you know, it was winter, and you know,
It'll get warmer as you go.
You know, as we were on the road, the team pulled out of the race, and I'm like, shit, what are we gonna do? And we were camping, and it was, you know, through Canberra and freezing, and we were like, stuff it, let's just keep going. You know, we'll just do it. And then all of a sudden, Byron Bay started to become this, for some reason, started to filter into the dialogue, and we're like, oh, Byron's pretty cool, you know, there's a bit happening there.
It's a bit shorter.
You know.
What is it about? It's like 500k shorter or something, or I don't know, less, 300.
Less, yeah.
300, yeah.
So
200 maybe.
Yeah, we pushed on, and funnily enough, we kept riding as if we had to meet the deadline. So we kind of, you know, we were on these absolute pieces of junk. Yeah, so we learned a lot.
What happened to Louis? Because from what I understand, when you got there, you just stayed there.
Yeah, we basically both stayed. I stayed for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
Obviously, getting around there without a car is a pain. We didn't have any clothes. We didn't have anything. Neither of us, again, didn't have any money. We had this romantic idea of sort of living there. But, you know, you got to find a place and find a room. And we both just started working in, I took a job at a restaurant, and Louis worked at this iconic petrol station in Bangalore, which, you know, they used to fill your tank up. So they were Bowser boys, essentially.
Yeah,
so
nice.
For me, like, thinking about that was a bike ride turned into a whole new life trajectory. And met my fiance. So, you know, I went for a bike ride, and
it's funny how
didn't come back, and
happens,
it was all worthwhile.
We're fast forwarding a bit more now, but I really want to talk about what is going on right now and Team Duda. And this is exciting, and this is sort of how we reconnected again. You sort of gave me a call out of the blue. It's always great to catch up, but you know, sometimes you need a reason, and which was great. You know, you sort of said, I've got this idea about this team. And it's really cool. Explain what's going on now with Team Duda and sort of the idea behind this team. You're back in the game.
I'm back in the game. Yeah, got some skin in the game. But the team is named in honor of my brother. You know, his nickname, or I mean, to me, his real name was Duda. I barely knew his actual name.
Where'd the nickname come from?
I won't get this wrong, but he, as a kid, I think my parents, someone said, "What's your name?" and he just started saying Duda. So okay. I think that was the was the story. But you know, he was always Duda. So, well, firstly, one of Duda's friends, Carrie, or a mutual friend of ours, together we kind of like founded the team and just wanted to just get back in the game and do something. I don't know, like I just had this sort of little itch to get back into cycling, but also the team wasn't really, maybe still isn't, but like clearly defined. You know, we're not this team who are out there trying to win NRS races, or we're not a purely result sort of focused outfit. But yeah, we just wanted to do something to honor him and kind of like race and ride and in the spirit that he did. So which was like he was pretty crazy in many ways. It's a new project. It's almost a bit of an evolution of Drapac and Pat's Veg as well, in just a new form. We've got some awesome sponsors. I hate to overuse the word organic, but it was really organic. Like everyone that we, you know, like yourself, people that we contacted, they
wanted
really
to be involved.
Yeah, they really wanted to be involved, and I think that was it wasn't like it was surprising, but it was just a bit like it was really cool.
What's it done to you personally?
I guess at that time when I first reached out, I wasn't riding at all. Again, just on the work train, and didn't have this sort of drive to be really immersed. Despite obviously wanting to start the team, I just think it was I wasn't quite there yet. But yeah, I think that the team and the culture and just the sort of dynamics, it just really has really inspired me to do more. I don't want to get too far ahead, but I mean, for me to string all 3.5 months of riding together is like some kind of miracle. On a personal level, it's like, it's really nice to sort of get motivated and race and be fit. There's nothing like official in terms of how we structure the roster, but younger people and some older, been there, done that people, and people like yourself who are just a wealth of knowledge, and it's just really evolved and continuously evolving into something really cool.
It's almost 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Should we get ready for bed?
We have to sleep. We're so cooked. You know, you're so tired. You're like, there's nothing else that can happen apart from passing out.
Pat, the fatigue levels are quite real this morning, aren't they?
They're probably times about 1,000. I mean, compared to yesterday. Today was like a instant, like, groaning wake up. Definitely, the alarm was like, you go, no way, this cannot be real. But just more like sore arms. You know that you're in trouble when you've got sore arms from riding a bike.
Yeah, it was a bit harder to get up today. There's questions start running through your mind, like, why are we doing this? Why did we choose 300k? Why not just add an extra day in? Alright, we'll be all over in about this time in 12 hours. We'll be close to being over.
Alright, about 80k in. It's been a bit of a peaceful morning, nice start. Always nice starting early in the morning. But just talking to Pat, we realised we did lose a bit of time because pulled up and we had a drink and had a bit of a rest, and then it was just before this four-wheel drive track, and then we just started venturing down this four-wheel drive track, Paddy, and what happened?
Pretty deep, thick sand, which, you know, has not been the kindest to me yet, but we tried to sort of push through this sand, and you were riding it at walking speed, and I was walking it at, you know, crawling speed. So we had to make the call to backtrack and reroute a little bit, because we would have been out there for hours on that little stretch. So I'm really happy, but we lost a bit of time. It's got that kind of feel about it.
Well, given it was about 50k into the ride, we sort of just went, hang on, let's do the maths here. Looks like about 15k of this. Shivers, we still got 250 in front of us. So look, we did a bit of a reroute. Took a bit longer when you think of it like that, but I think we saved time in the long run. We're just about to hit the coast. I said to Pat, it's probably our last bit of little help from the wind, and then 5k turns. Here we go. Paddy, we're in Wellington and we're on the ferry. We have to get a little ferry across to the Barossa. 100k to go. It should be, I don't know, somewhat the outskirts of Adelaide. The last 100k was just, I don't know, the wind picked up and
It's been hellish. Probably the last 150, let's be real. It was a headwind, wasn't it? The hardest bit about this is, like, it's completely exposed. Dead roads, hot as hell, tight legs, but it feels like my skin's bubbling. But, you know, 100 to go feels like, on one hand, it's the home stretch, but a serious slog.
isn't it weird, like on something like this, you get to 100 to go or 100k and you can sort of like start calling it in. Yet if we'd been out here today, you know, whatever it is, 36, 37 degrees, probably warmer, it feels much warmer. And someone said to you, mate, you want to ride the last 100k in Adelaide? You'd be like, hell no, I'm not doing that. What about your mentality now? Like, what's happening in your head now, sort of at the end of this, coming to the last part of the journey? I guess we're not close enough to start calling it a day yet, are we?
Not quite. I think mentally I've been doing hundreds at a time, but so this is another milestone. But I know we've got all these hills at the back of Adelaide that we need to deal with. So to be honest, I think my head is hopeful of no cramp. So I really want to avoid cramp, and probably last 30-40 can start to sort of see the finish line. But I'm not there yet, by no means. Are you there yet?
I'm happy to be on this. This was a real big sort of milestone for me on this ferry, and get across to the Barossa and sort of feel some civilization, because the last 100k on those roads have been just open, barren roads. I'm not done. I'd love to find a pub at about 30k to go and grab a cold one and just sort of go, mate, I think we can coast in from here. Well, Pat, we finally got here into the hills and a little bit of respite from the sun. We're in the trees, but yeah, the hills are hard, but it's just a bit nicer, isn't it? Just to change things up. The last couple of hours have been bloody tough.
You know, I think that Princess Highway stretch was mind-numbing, and you know, no shoulder or very little shoulder, windy, etc. But yeah, who would have thought some tree-lined bergs would be the respite? But yeah, it's just the exposed sun was the real killer for me. I was cooking, so still am cooking. Not there actually. I just had almost had a sensation like it was over at the top here, but we've got about 50k? Yeah. 50 to go. Pretty steep. Coming.
Well, we're at Stirling, and that was very solid, but really nice. Like it was sort of really cool, as I imagined, rolling into the Adelaide hills and just that suburbia and just a different sort of vibe to what we've been sort of used to. And that's the whole purpose of this ride, was riding to Adelaide. And arriving here, you just feel the atmosphere as you come up through these great little villages, great roads. And now that's what we're here for, Tour Down Under. It's sort of a really cool, very hard, but cool way to end. Pat, you sort of came good, didn't you?
You could put it that way, but I think that it was a bit of such a big roller coaster for me today. I guess it could be a roller coaster for a bloody coffee shop ride, but you know, this was like a bit of everything. I was suffering, and you know, I think just getting that little sniff of the end, like you said, sort of entering the outskirts, hitting some of those climbs, getting some shaded spots. I was like, okay, I can taste it now. Look, you nailed the route. It was an awesome ride, and you know, I think what this ride sort of reiterates for me is to try and get off the sort of the main highways and the main thoroughfares, and I don't know, because even those little snippets that we had, we were frustrated by cars, and you know, I think that's a big part of adventure riding, bikepacking, and should just be cycling, I guess, in general. But bit of a take home for me. Beers just got here, so.
Well, yes, that's right. The beers have just arrived. Quick beer before we head down, descend 20k, it's still 20k to go, down into Adelaide, and then it is really done. We are tasting it, but it is not quite over. But yes, amazing to be here. Mate, that was very cool. We rolled in to the Specialise and MAAP pop-up here on From Street in Adelaide. It's the vibes happening. We rolled straight in. There was pizzas, there was beers, everything we could have hoped for. Look, we couldn't stay that long because all I need to do is get a shower. These nicks need to get off me as soon as possible. I'm going to talk about the trip. While I'm thinking about my high and low, run me through from Stirling down the hill, your last sort of moments of the trip, mate.
I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but finishing, you have that euphoric feeling. You're like, thank God. Like, we weren't out of the woods yet because you were sort of on the hunger flat down through Stirling, but the festivities have definitely started in Adelaide, that's for sure. Those towns just before Stirling were pumping. I mean, it is Friday night. I later found out, but look, really a sense of accomplishment, just satisfied, I guess. And I think that's what you or most of us get out of a
a big ride, a big journey. Yeah, glad to have done it with good, in good company. There was a lot of moments that we didn't speak and rode, 100 meters apart. That was necessary, and then some really good conversation too. So, look, I think it was just a really awesome trip, in summary. But, I definitely need to have a shower because coming back into the sort of the public, I feel very self-conscious now and stink really bad.
Mate, you wrapped it up. I don't think we need to do your high and low. It sounds like you sort of said that. I think, not to say so regimented, I think exactly what you said. The best thing for me was riding with you. And I really loved just doing it 2 up this year because I just thought it was going to be so hard that you didn't want to rely on anyone else but one other guy. I knew we'd have our hard moments. I knew we'd have our good moments. And you just want one guy. If you're feeling bad, you get on the wheel. If the other guy's feeling good, he's in front. So, and honestly, I really wanted to reconnect with you. It's been too long and you're such a good dude. So it was really...
Likewise. Yeah. These trips are, I think you remember forever. So thanks for inviting me. Also just it was such a good trip. And I look forward to actually not riding tomorrow.
Well, there we go, guys. We're back. Very exciting to be back. I hope you enjoyed that episode, our struggles across to Adelaide, and I hope it does inspire you to get out on the road and take on an adventure yourself. They really are more than just a bike ride. Very, very exciting to announce our new partnership with MAAP, to have them on board. It's just going to be fun working with them. A big thanks, of course, to the Life in the Peloton team that make this whole thing come to life. And I am looking forward to having you all over at the Pelo. Whether you're in the front at the Echelon or hanging on at the back in the Doom line, it'd be great to have you on board at the Life in the Peloton Club. Guys, and until next week, I'm excited to be back. I'm Mitch Docker. Cheers. The music in this episode was composed by Pete Shelley. Cheers, mate.